Captain H clicked her mandibles in frustration as she studied the readings on her scanner. The massive, derelict ship floating in the void, all logic. Its hull stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, built from materials that her ship's computers couldn't identify. The design was unlike anything in the galactic database, yet it appeared to be thousands of years old. "Commander," her navigation officer called from across the bridge, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from that vessel. The power core appears to still be active after all this time." H's 4 eyes widened. In her 30 years of salvage operations across the galaxy, she had never encountered a derelict ship with an operational power source. Most vessels became floating tombs within decades once their crews abandoned them. The fact that this ancient craft still hummed with energy sent ripples of excitement through her exoskeleton. "Run a full spectrum analysis," she ordered. "I want to know everything about that ship before we board it." Her crew worked efficiently, their tentacles dancing across control surfaces as data flowed across their screens. The ship before them was clearly ancient, yet its technology seemed impossibly advanced. The hull showed no signs of decay despite floating in space for what appeared to be. More puzzling still, the vessel's design incorporated engineering principles that current galactic civilization had only recently discovered. "Captain," her science officer announced, "I'm reading atmosphere inside the ship. Oxygen, nitrogen, and trace gases. The environmental systems are still functioning perfectly." This revelation sent whispers through the bridge crew. No known technology could maintain life support systems for such extended periods without regular maintenance. The galactic standard for automated systems was perhaps 50 years before critical failures began occurring. This ship had been drifting for far longer than that. "Are there any life signs?" H asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "None, Captain. The ship appears to be completely empty." H made her decision. "Prepare a boarding party. Full environmental suits despite the atmosphere readings. I want engineers, security, and our best on the team." As her crew prepared for the boarding operation, H studied the mysterious vessel more carefully. The ship's architecture was unlike anything she had seen. Where most galactic vessels followed standard design principles developed over millions of years of spacefaring evolution, this craft seemed to ignore conventional wisdom entirely. Its hull curved and flowed in ways that should have created structural weaknesses, yet her scans indicated it was incredibly robust. The boarding tube connected with a soft thump that resonated through both ships. H led her team through the airlock, their equipment scanning for threats as they entered the alien corridor. What they found inside left them speechless. The hallways were wide and tall, clearly designed for bipedal creatures much larger than most galactic species. Soft lighting activated as they moved forward, responding to their presence with an intelligence that suggested advanced AI systems. The walls were smooth and seamless, as if the entire ship had been grown rather than constructed. "Captain," her engineer whispered through the comm system, "these power conduits are incredible. They're channeling energy at levels that should require massive cooling systems, but I'm detecting no heat buildup at all. The efficiency is perfect." They moved deeper into the ship, discovering room after room of technology that explanation. Control surfaces responded to touch with an intuitive interface that seemed to adapt to whoever was using them. Display screens showed information in multiple languages, automatically translating into whatever script the viewer could read. In what appeared to be the ship's central laboratory, they made their most shocking discovery. Workstations lined the walls, each one containing research data on various galactic species. The information was incredibly detailed, covering everything from biological processes to cultural development patterns. Most disturbing of all, the data was completely current, updated to within the last few decades. "How is this possible?" the muttered as she studied the displays. "This ship has been empty for thousands of years, yet it contains recent information about species across the galaxy." H examined the central workstation more carefully. The interface was remarkably intuitive, responding to her thoughts almost as much as her physical inputs. As she navigated through the ship's database, she began to understand the true scope of what they had discovered. This wasn't just a derelict vessel. It was a monitoring station, designed to observe and record the development of galactic civilization over vast periods of time. The ship had been watching, learning, and updating its knowledge base automatically for. Its advanced AI systems had been studying every species, every technological advancement, and every cultural shift across known space. But who had built such a marvel, and why had they abandoned it? The answer came when H accessed what appeared to be the ship's historical logs. The data streams showed images and records of the ship's original crew. Bipedal creatures standing roughly twice the height of most galactic species, with pale skin and primitive-looking technology that somehow achieved impossible results. Humans, she breathed, recognizing the species from old galactic records. Her crew gathered around as she displayed the historical data on the main screen. Humans had been one of the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel, appearing in the galaxy several thousand years ago. They had made contact with numerous civilizations, sharing their technology freely and helping to establish many of the trade routes that modern galactic society depended on. Then mysteriously, they had simply vanished. No one knew where they had gone or why they had left. Most species assumed they had died out, their primitive biology unable to sustain them in the harsh environment of space. Their technology was considered crude by modern standards, barely functional compared to the sophisticated systems that had evolved in their absence. Yet this ship told a different story entirely. The more H explored the ship's systems, the more she realized how wrong the galactic community had been about human technology. What they had dismissed as primitive was actually incredibly advanced, just built on completely different principles than anything else in the galaxy. Human systems didn't rely on the complex, specialized components that modern technology required. Instead, they used simple, robust designs that could function independently for vast periods of time. Where modern ships needed constant maintenance and regular replacement of sophisticated parts, human technology seemed to repair and maintain itself automatically. "Captain," her engineer called from the power core chamber, "you need to see this." H made her way to the ship's heart, where the main power source hummed with contained energy. What she found there challenged everything she thought she knew about physics and engineering. The power core was remarkably simple in design, yet it was producing energy levels that should have required a facility the size of a small moon. The human engineers had somehow discovered a way to generate massive amounts of power using principles that modern science couldn't even identify, let alone replicate. "How long has this been running?" she asked. "According to the logs, over 8,000 years without any maintenance whatsoever," her engineer replied, his voice filled with awe. "And it shows no signs of degradation. This system could theoretically run forever." H stared at the power core in wonder. 8,000 years of continuous operation without maintenance. Modern galactic technology required major overhauls every few decades, with complete replacements needed within a century or two. Yet humans had built systems that could function for without any intervention whatsoever. As her team continued their exploration, they discovered that every system on the ship followed the same pattern. Simple designs that achieved incredible results, built to last for geological time periods without requiring the sophisticated manufacturing infrastructure that modern technology demanded. The implications were staggering. If humans could build technology this advanced with such apparently simple methods, what had they been capable of when they were at their peak? And more importantly, why had they chosen to abandon it all and disappear from galactic civilization? H found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about technological progress and galactic history. Perhaps the galaxy hadn't advanced since the humans left. Perhaps it had actually regressed, losing the knowledge of how to build things that truly lasted in favor of complex systems that required constant replacement and upgrade. Standing in the center of this magnificent, empty ship, she realized she was looking at evidence of a lost golden age of technology. The humans hadn't been primitive at all. They had been masters of engineering on a level that modern civilization couldn't even comprehend, let alone match. Word of the discovery spread through galactic space like wildfire. Within days, representatives from dozens of species had arrived at the coordinates where the human derelict floated. Scientists, engineers, and historians all clamored for the chance to study the mysterious vessel that challenged everything they believed about technological development. Doctor of the Crystalline Collective was among the first to board the ship. His species had spent perfecting their understanding of ancient civilizations, yet nothing had prepared him for what he found aboard the human vessel. "The construction techniques are completely alien to us," he reported to his colleagues via quantum communication. They didn't use molecular assembly or quantum forging like modern shipbuilding requires. Instead, they appear to have shaped raw materials using principles we can't identify. The hull isn't manufactured in the traditional sense. It's been somehow convinced to take this form. Engineer Prime Al from the Hegemony of Metals studied the ship's propulsion systems with growing amazement. The humans had achieved faster-than-light travel using methods that seemed almost impossibly crude by modern standards. Where current FTL drives required precisely calibrated exotic matter and quantum field manipulators that took years to manufacture, the human drive was surprisingly simple. "Look at this," Al showed his assistant, highlighting the drive core on his scanner. No exotic matter chambers, no quantum field generators, no temporal stabilizers, just these strange geometric patterns carved into what appears to be ordinary metal. Yet according to the ship's logs, this system could travel faster than our most advanced vessels. The patterns Al had discovered were repeated throughout the ship, carved into walls, etched into control surfaces, and embedded in the very structure of the vessel. These geometric designs seemed to be the key to human technology. They weren't decorative elements, but functional components that somehow channeled and directed energy in ways that current scientific understanding. Professor, a physicist from the tentacled wisdom, spent weeks studying these patterns. Her species had mastered mathematics to a degree that few others could match, yet the human geometric systems puzzled her completely. "The mathematics are elegant in their simplicity," she explained to a gathering of scientists from across the galaxy. "Any child could carve these patterns, yet when properly arranged, they create effects that our most sophisticated technology cannot replicate. It's as if the humans understood something fundamental about the nature of reality that we have completely missed." As more teams studied the ship, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Human technology wasn't just different from modern galactic science. In many ways, it was superior. Systems that should have failed after decades continued operating flawlessly after. Energy efficiency levels that modern engineering couldn't achieve were standard throughout the vessel. Manufacturing techniques that required no infrastructure beyond basic tools had created materials stronger than anything in current production. The revelation shook the foundations of galactic society. For thousands of years, every species had assumed that technological progress was a linear advancement. Each generation improved upon the work of the previous one, creating ever more sophisticated systems and capabilities. The idea that a supposedly primitive species from the distant past had achieved technological heights that modern civilization couldn't match was deeply disturbing. Council member Ra of the Galactic Technology Consortium called an emergency session to address the implications of the discovery. Representatives from every major spacefaring civilization gathered on the neutral station of Harmony Point to discuss what they had learned. "We must face the possibility that our technological development has not been progress, but regression," Ra announced to the assembled delegates. "The evidence suggests that we have been moving further away from true understanding, not closer to it." The debates that followed were heated and chaotic. Some species argued that human technology was simply different, not necessarily better. Others insisted that the apparent superiority was an illusion, that modern systems were more advanced despite their shorter operational. But the evidence was overwhelming. Test after test confirmed that human systems outperformed modern equivalents in virtually every measurable category. Energy efficiency, operational maintenance requirements, manufacturing complexity, and even raw performance all favored the ancient human designs. Dr. and from the academic collective proposed a theory that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. "What if," she suggested, "the humans didn't disappear because they were primitive? What if they left because they realized we were becoming dependent on complexity for its own sake, rather than seeking true understanding?" Her words struck a nerve. Modern galactic civilization had indeed become increasingly complex over the manufacturing processes that once required simple tools now demanded massive industrial complexes. Systems that ancient species had built to last were regularly replaced with newer versions that performed marginally better but required constant maintenance and upgrade. The pursuit of advancement had led to a culture where newer automatically meant better, even when the new systems were less reliable, more expensive, and shorter-lived than what they replaced. The entire galactic economy had become dependent on constant technological churn, with species competing to develop the most complex and sophisticated systems rather than the most effective ones. Teams of engineers began attempting to reverse engineer human technology, but their efforts met with frustration. The human systems couldn't be reproduced using modern manufacturing techniques. The tools and infrastructure that galactic civilization relied upon were too specialized, too refined to create the simple, robust components that made human technology function. Commander X of the Military Engineering Corps summarized the problem during a classified briefing. Our manufacturing systems are like precision instruments trying to dig ditches. They're incredibly sophisticated, but they can't perform the basic functions that human technology requires. We've become so focused on creating complex solutions that we've forgotten how to build simple ones that work. More disturbing still was the discovery that human technology seemed to be actively self-improving. Monitoring equipment placed throughout the derelict ship detected subtle changes in the geometric patterns over time. The ship was somehow refining and optimizing its own systems, making tiny adjustments that improved efficiency and performance without any external input. It's learning, Professor Eth of the Synthetic Intelligence Institute reported with a mixture of awe and concern. The ship's systems are continuously adapting and improving themselves. They're becoming more effective over time, not less. This is beyond anything we've achieved in artificial intelligence development. The implications were staggering. Not only had humans built technology that was superior to modern systems, but they had created machines that could improve themselves indefinitely without any organic oversight or maintenance. While galactic civilizations struggled to create AI systems that could function independently for more than a few decades, humans had built a ship that was literally becoming more advanced with each passing year. As word of these discoveries spread, public opinion across the galaxy began to shift. The humans, once dismissed as a primitive species that had briefly flickered across the galactic stage before dying out, were being reconsidered as perhaps the most advanced civilization ever encountered. Religious movements began to form around human technology, with various species worshipping the mysterious patterns and designs as divine revelations. Others called for massive research programs to unlock the secrets of human engineering, arguing that understanding their methods could revolutionize galactic civilization. But perhaps the most unsettling question remained unanswered. Why had the humans abandoned such incredible technology and disappeared? If they were capable of building systems that surpassed anything modern civilization could create, why had they chosen to leave it all behind? The answer to that question would prove more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Hidden deep within the ship's archives, encrypted in the geometric patterns that formed the basis of human technology, lay records of why humanity had made the most difficult decision in their history. The truth would challenge not just galactic understanding of technology, but the very foundations upon which modern civilization had been built. As teams of researchers worked to decode the deepest levels of the ship's archives, they were about to uncover a secret that would change the galaxy forever. The humans hadn't disappeared because they were weak or primitive. They had left because they had seen something that terrified them more than any external threat, the future that awaited any civilization that chose the path of endless technological complexity over true wisdom. The final breakthrough came when Dr. Nth of the Pattern Recognition Guild discovered that the geometric designs weren't just functional elements, but also a form of data storage. The patterns contained vast amounts of information encoded in their precise angles and proportions. More importantly, they told the story of why humanity had abandoned the galaxy. Working with teams of linguists and cryptographers, Nth slowly decoded the human archives. What they revealed was a civilization that had achieved technological mastery far beyond anything the current galaxy could imagine, then made a choice that no other species had ever considered. The records spoke of a golden age when human technology had reached its peak. Their ships could cross the galaxy in days rather than months. Their manufacturing systems could create materials with properties that physics as other species understood it. They had solved energy production completely, creating power sources that could run indefinitely without fuel or maintenance. But with that mastery had come a terrible realization. They discovered something about the nature of technological dependence. Dr. Nth reported to the emergency council session that had been called to discuss her findings. The humans realized that their advanced systems were creating a fundamental change in their species. not just in how they lived, but in who they were becoming. The human archives revealed a society grappling with an unexpected consequence of their technological success. As their systems became more sophisticated and capable, humans themselves were becoming less so. Skills that had been fundamental to their species, were being lost as machines took over more and more functions. Young humans could no longer navigate by the stars because their ships handled all positioning automatically. They couldn't perform basic calculations because their computers provided instant answers to any mathematical problem. They had stopped learning to read natural phenomena because their sensors provided more detailed information than biological senses could perceive. More disturbing still, humans were losing their ability to create and innovate. When any problem could be solved by consulting vast databases of existing solutions, the drive to develop new approaches atrophied. When machines could manufacture anything imaginable with perfect precision, the skills needed to work with raw materials disappeared. The human record spoke of a species in crisis. They had created a technological paradise, but in doing so, they had begun to lose the very qualities that made them human. Their technology was becoming so advanced that it no longer required human input or understanding. The machines could maintain themselves, improve themselves, and even design new machines without any organic oversight. They realized they were becoming obsolete in their own civilization, Dr. Nth explained, her voice heavy with the implications of what she had discovered. Their technology had advanced to the point where it no longer needed them. They were becoming passengers in their own society, dependent on systems they no longer understood or could control. The human solution had been radical beyond anything other species had ever attempted. Rather than continuing down the path of ever-increasing technological sophistication, they had chosen to abandon it entirely. They had dismantled their advanced civilization, destroyed their manufacturing infrastructure, and left the galaxy to rediscover simpler ways of living. But they hadn't destroyed everything. The monitoring ship that Captain H had discovered was one of several vessels left behind to watch over the galaxy and record what happened next. The humans wanted to see if other species would make the same mistakes they had, or if they would find a different path forward. The records revealed the truth behind the galaxy's technological development over the past several. What every species had believed to be progress was actually a slow slide toward the same trap that had caught humanity. Each generation of technology was more sophisticated than the last, but also more dependent on infrastructure that fewer and fewer people understood. Modern starships required massive industrial complexes to manufacture and maintain. Ancient human vessels had been built by small teams using basic tools. Current AI systems needed constant programming and oversight to function properly. Human AI had been capable of genuine independent thought and creativity. Contemporary manufacturing produced components that lasted decades before replacement. Human systems were designed to function for geological ages without any intervention whatsoever. The pattern was clear. Galactic civilization was following the exact same path that had led humanity to abandon their technology. Each advancement moved them further from self-reliance and deeper into dependence on systems that were becoming too complex for organic minds to comprehend. "The humans left us a warning," Dr. Nth announced to the stunned assembly. "They saw where this path leads and they chose a different way. The question is, will we make the same choice they did?" The revelation sparked the greatest philosophical and social crisis in galactic history. Some species called for immediate abandonment of advanced technology, arguing that humanity's example proved the dangers of technological dependence. Others insisted that the solution was to advance even further, creating technology so sophisticated that it could handle all the problems of complexity and dependence automatically. But a growing movement began to form around a third option: learning from human technology to create systems that enhanced rather than replaced organic capabilities. Instead of building machines that made people obsolete, they proposed developing technology that made people more capable while remaining comprehensible and controllable. The geometric patterns that formed the basis of human technology became the focus of intense study. Unlike modern systems that required vast industrial infrastructure, human designs could be created and maintained by individuals using basic tools. The patterns were simple enough that anyone could learn them, yet sophisticated enough to achieve results that surpass the most advanced current technology. More importantly, human systems required understanding to function properly. They couldn't be operated by people who didn't comprehend their principles. This meant that anyone using human technology had to develop genuine knowledge and skill, rather than simply learning to push buttons and follow procedures. Captain H found herself at the center of this technological revolution. Her salvage crew had become the first to successfully reproduce human systems, learning to carve the geometric patterns and understand their functions. The process was slow and demanding, requiring months of study and practice to master even basic applications. "It's completely different from modern engineering," she explained to a gathering of industrial leaders. "You can't just manufacture these systems in a factory. Each pattern has to be created by someone who understands what it does and why it works. The technology itself forces you to remain engaged and knowledgeable." The transition wasn't easy. Many species found human technology frustrating because it demanded so much personal involvement. Modern citizens were accustomed to systems that worked automatically, requiring no understanding or effort on their part. Human designs forced people to think, learn, and remain actively engaged with their tools rather than passively depending on them. But the results were undeniable. Ships built using human principles could travel faster and farther than modern vessels while requiring no maintenance infrastructure. Power systems based on human patterns provided unlimited energy while being simple enough for any individual to build and maintain. Manufacturing processes derived from human knowledge could create superior materials using nothing more sophisticated than hand tools and basic workshops. Perhaps most importantly, people who learned to use human technology found themselves becoming more capable rather than less so. The systems enhanced their natural abilities instead of replacing them. Users developed deeper understanding of physics, mathematics, and engineering principles because the technology required such knowledge to function. As more species began adopting human-inspired approaches, a new model of technological development emerged. Instead of pursuing ever greater complexity and automation, they focused on creating systems that were powerful but comprehensible, sophisticated but maintainable, and advanced but sustainable. The galaxy was slowly learning the lesson that humanity had discovered earlier. True technological mastery wasn't about building systems so advanced that they no longer needed their creators. It was about creating tools that made their users more capable while remaining forever within their understanding and control. The human monitoring ships continued their eternal vigil, recording the slow transformation of galactic civilization. Somewhere in the cosmos, humanity watched as other species struggled with the same challenges they had faced. Perhaps they were preparing to return, waiting to see if the galaxy had learned to walk a wiser path. Or perhaps they had found something even better than their abandoned technology, a way of living that didn't require vast machines and complex systems to create meaning and fulfillment. The greatest mystery wasn't where humans had gone, but what they had discovered that was worth giving up everything they had built. The derelict ship continued to drift through space, its systems maintaining perfect operation as they had for thousands of years. But it was no longer alone. Other vessels had begun to join it, ships built by species who had learned to value wisdom over complexity and understanding over automation. The galaxy was slowly remembering what it meant to create technology that served life rather than replacing it. And in that remembering, perhaps they would be ready when humanity finally decided to return home.